Welcome to Athletes to Entrepreneurs, the Alumni Journey. I'm Rob Finkelstein, CEO and founder of Alumni Direct. We've created a platform to help alumni network and connect through their affinity relationships, whether it's college, whether it's business alumni association, fraternities, sororities, or sports. And we've created the show to teach and inspire athletes that there is life after sports. And we're so excited today to have Corrine Milien on, and she's got a great story. Corrine, welcome to the show.
Rob, thank you so much for creating this platform and connecting athletes to the network that they tend to not know exists.
Yeah, absolutely. You're welcome. I mean, it's something that athlete transition, as we know, is it's a major issue today, both from mental health challenges and financial, and we really want to get to the bottom of it and try to help athletes out. So, growing up, Corinne played golf and softball, and she's telling me all this stuff, and I'm forgetting now because she did a lot of things. And then she went on to she went to the Air Force Academy, and thank you for your service in the military. And then when she got out, she became a coaching assistant, student assistant to the famous Lady Vols from Tennessee. And
Yes.
and I know this, you can tell some stories from that. And then ultimately now she's founded her own company. It's called Work LLC, which again, we'll find out more about later. And basically she works in the talent acquisition space. So everything going good today?
No complaints. It was a fantastic day. Came from the dog park, doing catching up on some emails while the sun is still out. So I cannot complain.
There you go. So I always ask the question to start out very simple. Talk a little bit about sports and how it shaped your growing up.
Yeah, it's funny because I didn't really. My mom said nowhere in the Bible did it say Jesus played, so it wasn't like sports was a big part of our life. I just kind of stumbled upon. I've been playing golf since I was 7, because my mom did say she heard business deals were done on the golf course.
There
So
you
that
go.
was the one thing that was pretty consistent. But a career in sports was never an ideal situation. But when I got to Germany as an airman, and the first thing I did was start coaching, and I realized the opportunities that opened up for me because of my presence just there as a coach, not only in the lives of the students that I was coaching, but in my own life and how I was able to benefit from those experiences.
Yeah, I've done a lot of coaching myself, and it is very rewarding. Talk a little bit about. So we talked about sport. Did you want to be a professional athlete growing up at all?
No, I'm a first generation American, so it was doctor, lawyer, engineer, nurse, some type of professional. Sports was not a thing.
Gotcha. Yeah, we talk about it in every show. I always have to throw it in there. We've had all different types of athletes, and I'll say I wanted to be Major League Baseball player. Unfortunately, I didn't have the talent, so I'm doing this now.
Yeah,
Next,
and I
next best thing.
mean, and I'm not. Don't let the baby face fool you. As a woman growing up, there wasn't really that many options to be in professional sports anyway. So it wasn't like today where you could say, "I want to be a WNBA player. I want to be in the NWSL." So it was go to school, get a degree, and live the American dream.
There you go. That sounds good. So, talk a little bit about, and either in your experience or maybe in some of the other experience of athletes around you, when you went to college, and again, you were in the military academy, Air Force Academy, and then also just being around Tennessee and the other schools. She has another school. You pronounce the school because I couldn't do it. So go ahead.
Bemidji State, it is in Minnesota, and you have to say Minnesota like that. You can't say Minnesota.
Okay.
Um,
So shout out to them. I couldn't
Shout
say.
out to the Beavers all day. I always represent my Beavers here.
There you go. Well, that's great. So, did that school or even in Tennessee, did they do anything as far as developing programs to kind of help athletes to think out of the box of what's next after sports?
Yeah, I mean, I really got a chance to see that up close at Tennessee. Won 8 national championships, but she also poured into a lot of great athletes on and off the court. And they have their own company. Michelle Marciniak, she has Sheiks. She's a Lady Vol. We have Lady Vols who are broadcasters, and And to summarize a little bit of what she said, I used them for 4 years. I expect them to use me for the rest of my life. And really being able to see that at its finest, again, winning 8 national championships, winning all these games, but making sure the student athletes felt like if you want to get into logistics as a Lady Vol, doors will be open for you, right? You are going to, this is a global brand, the Lady Vols at the time. And if you wanted to fail, you could. But if you showed up, you were gonna succeed as a Lady Ball.
That's great, and that's pretty powerful. And I think it seems like a lot of schools are starting to do it now, but it's portion. I mean, do you know from your experience there, did the other athletic programs at Tennessee do the same as well?
You know, probably not as much as now that I'm educated in this space as much as they could have done. I think there it was still, like you said, it's still kind of new. And it was get resume, get interviews, find a job. There wasn't really an intentionality to expose student athletes to the various careers that they could be, or really challenge them to get experience, because it is hard to get those internships or that any type of experience as a student athlete. And so really working to create opportunities for the student athletes to get experience when they could, I think was probably something from my perspective at the time, that maybe could have been better. But there are some fantastic people on campus who are working their butt off to make sure that the student athlete experience was as well as it could be with their academic schedules and travel schedules, and making sure we had 100% graduation rate, right? So we're doing what we need to do. I think it was just more on the individual, what happens after they graduate, right? What happens after the 6 months of graduation? If they don't have a job, is there still an engagement there?
Yeah, and it's hopefully we start seeing more of it. I mean, we've talked about this a lot of how do we go in and help these schools out? Because again, it's fragmented, and to your point, that's great that they have those programs. And one of the things we've talked about at Alumni Direct is to kind of go into some of these athletic departments and talk to the athletic directors and the coaches, and find out more about what they're doing and just ways that we can help, and then kind of bringing in kind of that SWAT team, I'll call it, of just different resources, whether it be the athlete transition coaches or some of the people that work in counseling or financial literacy, but to help develop these programs to help out the current athletes. And then more importantly, I think too, is a little bit of a gap with the alumni athletes. So kind of segueing into that, when you talk about alumni athletes, what kind of interaction did they have in the program coming back? And again, this might have been a little while back, but even if not then, like what are you seeing today from alumni involvement?
Yeah, for me, before having my starting my own business, I spent 7 years in a nonprofit developing minority student athletes who wanted to work in sports media entertainment, and really going in to be a partner with athletic departments in some of that professional development, and meeting them where they are. By the time they graduate and they're alumni, all they know is their sport, and now they have a degree with some letters behind it, but there's no experience. So I really didn't concern myself with what wasn't happening on campus or how they weren't being engaged. I really tried to be a resource to remind them, if you're an offensive lineman for Nick Saban, there's not a single accountant in the state of Alabama that doesn't take a call from Nick Saban and says, "Hey, I got a guy who wants to be an accountant. Can you give him an internship?" So make sure after you graduate, just because someone isn't telling you when to wake up, when to go to practice, what to eat, that you're not reaching back and saying, "Hey, I'm in Louisiana now and I'm trying to get a job. Is there anybody in the network that you can connect me with?" Because there's limited resources on campus. In most cases, it's one or two people that's kind of responsible for 22 sports, and it's easier to help those that come to the office, right? And so if you were that guy that probably didn't go into the office as often as you should, what are you doing now to make sure you maintain those connections?
Yeah, no, I think that's important. I mean, a lot of people, they don't really understand how to network and connect. And back to your point before, I mean, you're so tied up in your sport that you don't necessarily have that time. And that's something that that we want to help facilitate. I was talking to one agent, and he represents both NBA and NFL guys, and he said that the best time to network and connect is when you're still playing. So whether it's, in college or even if you're fortunate to make it professional, but a lot of these athletes don't, just because either they don't understand it or they don't have the time to do it.
Yeah, it's crazy. And, I spent a lot of time just breaking that down for them and saying, hey, some booster pays a lot of money to have a dinner for you to sit next to them. Take advantage of that. They want to hear from you. They want to talk to you. They want to know about you. And it's on you to really challenge them to ask more about more than your stats. Ask, share what your last project was in class, or share some project that you noticed somebody like. It doesn't always have to be about last week's game, because most people in your shoes at your age doesn't have the audience of the CEO of Pilot gas station. But if you're a Tennessee Volunteer, the Haslams are at every event, right? And so how are you maximizing those opportunities?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's probably something that, again, the resources aren't necessarily there. And that's where kind of creating these partnerships, to go back. So with the alumni athletes, and kind of give you a quick story, and then just from your, from the three different schools, we'll say the Air Force Academy, Tennessee, and your school in Minnesota. Which again, everybody, sorry, just I can't pronounce it, so I'm not gonna. So
It's an Indian reservation, so Bemidji.
Bemidji. Got it. Okay. So did they encourage alumni athletes to come back? Like I know a lot of times you'll hear about the alumni golf tournaments, for the baseball team or the football team, but in general, in those different schools, did you see encouragement from the athletic department, alumni relations, to have these athletes come back as mentors or helping out the other students?
Definitely. And I think at the end of the day, it's about fundraising. So they're always going to call them to ask for donations. So that's usually the majority of the engagement. And I've started to see now, with different platforms coming on board, giving them the ability to connect their alumni to be those mentors. I would like to think those relationships should happen naturally, especially for if a coach has been at a school for a while and they've built up that brotherhood at Duke or the Notre Dame sister. All these
Right.
places that have had a coach for a long time or a tradition. It happens naturally. It may not be a formal thing, but Duke basketball managers benefit from former alumni at Duke, right? So in some places it's already there. I think it's more about being a little more intentional and really stretching those resources to make that easier for people.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's good stuff there. So now a big hot topic that everybody's talking is NIL, name, image, likeness. Give me your thoughts, positives and the negatives, or just overall.
Yeah, I stay away. I try not to mix talent acquisition and NIL, because it could be confusing. If you're an athlete and I'm approaching you for a career. I'm not approaching you to give you something to promote something. So I try to, for me personally, in my professional brand, I try not to mix the two. I think it's still so much to be figured out about NIL, that the campuses are still trying to figure out what that looks like. Athletes are trying to figure out what that looks like. This next tax return, a lot of athletes are going to realize what NIL really means to their pockets. So I think it's going to take a couple of years before people really start to figure out what that looks like. I think there's some positives. I see the articles that D2 women volleyball players are killing the game, right? Versus what people would have expected. The football D1 players were going to be at the very top, and so I think it's creating a lot of opportunities for people to get paid at the end of the day, and expose their brand. But it's something that I'm still trying to really sit back and understand before I really dive into seeing if this is something that, from a talent acquisition standpoint, that I want to kind of touch.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was talking to one former NFL player, and he said that, I asked him what his thoughts, and he said obviously when he played, it wasn't around. He said it would have been great, but his concern, kind of, you hit it, is just from a financial literacy standpoint. Hey, guess what? You got to pay taxes, or you got to, and a lot of young people, whether it's athletes or just young people in general, they don't necessarily know that. And I think to your point, there's I guess there's a need, whether it's on the college side or even again bringing in different types of resources to help them understand all the intricacies of NIL and what they need to do so that they don't find themselves in trouble.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, the schools are still making money from it. So as much as people fought to have NIL and thinking it would, create this lane for the athletes to be on their own, the schools will always find a way to make money from it. And I don't know if that's a pro or a con,
Right.
but if the school is bringing in the resource, they're usually brokering those NIL deals on behalf of the athletes, so they're making money.
Yeah, no, and I guess that's tough. So, um, coming off of now NIL, so we talked about alumni engagement. Talk a little bit about, and we're going to kind of take this in two categories. So you were in the military, Air Force Academy, and then also in sports. Kind of compare the two. Like, I don't want to. Obviously, from a military standpoint, it's could be more life and death. But do you see parallels between the two and what athletes experience as well as what folks in the military experience too when they get done with their a tour of duty or their athletic careers?
Yeah, for me, I was 25 before I ever bought my first piece of furniture or like my own real clothes. Because from the military to grad school, everything I needed was provided, from housing, my meals, what I wore, everything. And so the transition was. I believe very similar for athletes, and like now you have to provide for yourself, you have to wake yourself up, now you have to make your own meals, and also just how I talked about myself. And I think I see this a lot of athletes. You want to lean into, oh, I'm a basketball player. Well, now you're not a basketball player. Now you have to be something else. So how are you talking about yourself? How are you presenting yourself on your resume? Is it just all stats and I was SEC conference this and SEC conference that? Or even if you don't have work experience, how are you showcasing your ability to process information or critical think or be a team leader? Using those same experiences to now showcase your ability to join a team. And it's the same with the military. Like I was in command and control, nobody knows what that means, but how do I translate those skills into what I'm doing now and rearranging my resume to reflect that?
Yeah, and I guess the other challenge, and once you're done, and I would imagine just in the military, I was not in it, but like in athletes as well, is it you kind of have that whole team atmosphere as well, and you're used to just to being together, that brotherhood, the sisterhood, and then all of a sudden it's gone. Talk a
Yeah,
little bit about that.
I think it helped me be someone that found it anyway, right? So when I got to ESPN, I found my teammates. I found people that could be in my tribe, and people were naturally drawn to me because I put out that I'm here for everybody. It's not me individually. Whereas I could tell the folks who maybe didn't come from that team sport or sports in general background, it was like, I come here to be the best. If I step on you, I step on you, or whatever the case may be. And we're all competitive. I wanted to be the best, but I also recognize that I can't get to where I want to get to without the production coordinator doing this and the producer doing this and the director doing this. So how can I make their job easy to make my job easy? And I think it really led well to my success.
No, that's great, and I think I guess maybe that's part of the lesson too that you just gave is just to take that kind of team mentality into your next journey into life, as far as just because you're not playing that sport or not military anymore now, whatever you do, kind of surround yourself with people that you like and kind of have that helping attitude. So give advice to yeah, we'll talk about athletes. Give advice to athletes as they journey out of that sport, and some are tougher than others as far as getting hurt or just so wrapped up. And talk a little bit about that and how you would recommend they go on that journey ultimately to entrepreneurship or other success in business.
Tell people as often as you can what you want to do. It doesn't have to be flushed out. It doesn't have to be perfect. Don't wait until something happens and you're no longer playing for people to know what you want to do. I literally just had a conversation with a young man from UT Chattanooga. He's playing overseas right now. And I was like, okay, so what are you going to be doing while you're over there? He's like, well, I'm really focused on playing. And I'm like, my guy, people loved you. You're like the mayor of Chattanooga. You hit the buzzer beater in the tournament. People want to help you. People want to know how they can help you. You don't have to know exactly what your business plan is or what your career wants to be, but use LinkedIn, reshare projects of other. If Kevin Durant is doing something that you find interesting, share that so then people say, okay, he's maturing over there, or these are the things that he's interested in. That's the biggest thing is I think they, as in especially elite athletes, they train, they work out, and it's like that even isn't your whole day, right? Like there's still so much time in a day that you could really be working on setting yourself up for what life looks like after playing.
Right. No, that's great. So, your journey ended up now. I mean, you're talking about ESPN. I mean, you tell us a little bit about that. But in the beginning, I talked big picture of what you're doing. So, talk a little about what you're doing today. You can add that in, and then just talk about the successful business that you started in talent acquisition as well.
Yeah, so I've really taken the idea of being intentional about engaging talent and created a at scale model to connect talent with organizations in sport media and entertainment. So from finding your next internship class to your next executive CMO, I'm going to extend that opportunity beyond that first or second degree network that you may have now, because we all know the last 3 years everybody's made commitments to be more inclusive, and but you have to start somewhere, and usually that starts with not just going to the people that you're comfortable with to find referrals for jobs or finding talent, but maybe going 3 or 4 degrees beyond that. So really leveraging my deep connections and just I don't know 1,000 people, but I know 100 people that know 100 people that know 100 people that know 100 people.
Yeah.
And so really providing at scale talent placement and some HR functions for startups. Really big, like I said, I want to be as involved in golf as much as possible. I want to play golf till I die. So any company that I can help that's related to golf, and we know the industry has some challenges in being more inclusive. And so being someone that loves the sport and wants to help bring talent to the industry, I want to do that as much as possible.
That's great. So, just like a side note, like live versus PGA, any thoughts?
Um, so many thoughts we don't have time for.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a controversial topic right now, but so and then I guess with the whole talent acquisition too, it's kind of almost and I like to think of this way too, and myself and Alumni Direct is that you're kind of almost like a three-way partnership. So you're kind of it's like you, and then you're facilitating that connection between the athlete or the celebrity per se and the hiring company or companies looking for that.
Yeah, that's why my logo has is intersecting, because it's not. Don't blame the job seekers for not having diversity in your organization. The job seekers can't blame the employer. Like we're all working together to make it a better workforce.
Yeah, no, that's great. And so, where can people find you?
www.letsdowork.com. I keep it pretty simple. I don't do a lot of platforms. I'm a country girl. So I got LinkedIn and a website. Those are the ways you can find me. If you're a basketball fan, somebody in basketball land knows how to get in touch with me if it's really that desperate. But I try to make it easy for people to see me as a resource and a partner on their journey.
That's great. And we'll put all that in show notes. And then for us, you can find us at alumnidirect.com. You can also see us on Facebook and LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, all that. And then follow the show. I think it's important, and we want to continue to have great guests like Corrine just to share in their insights and help and how we can really make an impact in this athlete world. It's something the more we talk about, and the more shows I have, and just the information I get, it's an issue, and we really want to be part of the solution in helping these athletes out. So thank you so much. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.